Township businesses, especially Spaza shops, are the backbone of South Africa's informal economy, providing essential goods and creating livelihoods in undeserved communities. But recent food poisoning incidents linked to some Spaza shops have led to tragic losses and prompted the government to take swift action. Spaza shops across the country now face a 21-day deadline to re-register and comply with stringent health regulations or risk closure. Joining us to explore the implications of these new measures and what they mean for township entrepreneurs is Bulelani Balabala, a dedicated small business owner and community leader. Bulelani, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for speaking to us. 21 days to re-register or register. Is this sufficient time?
You know what? Thank you so much for having me and for this afternoon. Definitely not sufficient time. Because I think that in and itself indicates that there is capacity. Whereas, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, the reports were there weren't enough, so there weren't sufficient inspectors and the sort. And I think a number of other small businesses have then brought to light the fact that they've had frustrations in and around applying for the COA. I think that methodology is a blanket approach. That is presumptuous to the fact that all those small businesses in actual fact are formal. But also what it then does is it's another layer of exclusion to a degree. And I think just to give some context, we're by no means saying that there should not be a crackdown on businesses that are participating in illicit or illegal activities, that are manufacturing counterfeit goods, and that are heinously, deliberately working against society and the safety and the livelihood of our children and the men and women. But however, I think there needs to be a level of understanding in and around how these businesses operate, but first and foremost. Because I think when you sort of unpack and peel off the layers, we then understand that 60% or a little bit more than that of individuals who start businesses as micro enterprises really start as subsistence businesses by measure of the fact that they were unable to put bread on the table or whatever salaries they get is not enough. And they operate them as side hustles. That being said, they're not starting as a formalized business, as you would articulate a formalized business. They're starting as an individual who's really trying to meet ends meet at the end of the day. So I think the 21 days, it's wishful thinking, because when you sort of calculate the 21 days, it cuts into the second week of December. Now then it beckons the question, when will these public officials still be in operation? Will they be breaking out for the season? And when they do break out for the season, what then happens to the ones that are lagging? Because there's Spaza shops and all these other businesses that are directly affected, contribute immensely to the livelihood of low-income households.
Bulelani, how many Spaza shops, in your understanding, exist in South Africa, or maybe even in Soweto alone?
I mean, we don't have any fine data, right? But I think some of the indicators, indicate well over 50,000. In actual fact, the 50,000 is a conservative number. But there's quite a number of, which are in the hundreds of thousands of these Spaza shops that are operating.
So allow me to come in there and put in my next question. So if we have 50,000, let's be conservative and say there are 20,000 Spaza shops around the country that need to be re-registered or registered for the first time. How practical is it? Is the first question. And second question, did government engage, did the municipalities engage with you as entrepreneurs or business owners and part of the township economy in coming up with this 21-day deadline?
No, definitely. I think first and foremost, I think my direct response is impractical. For that to happen in 21 days, I think they would need a miracle of sorts, or rather really a deliberate change in leadership and how governance is done. Because I think traditionally with solutions to small businesses or township businesses, traditional passion that we've seen is one of almost a nonchalant behavior, where the delivery of the financial and non-financial support takes forever. And then I guess for us on the backdrop of, have we been engaged? We haven't. I think we've then, on our side also then taken some proactive stances. From the moment the first media statement was released by the Gauteng Department of Education around the immediate closure and seizure and the sort, we then started to hand out booklets to these business owners. because primarily for the virtue that says that virtuously you need to then educate them so that they're able to understand how then to operate before then you are able to then apply a measure of discipline. And then to the ones that are already in established markets, you then start to crack down on those particular markets. But we have not been engaged. So when the president was making a speech a few days ago and talking about their consulting professionals and engineers and doctors and the sort. I mean, one would have loved to know who are some of the individuals that are on the ground that really have their hand on the pulse of what's going on that they're consulting. Because needless to say, I mean, we might even run into the same challenge that we had during the lockdown when the funds were being raised to be redistributed for the help of small businesses, that sometimes most of those funds never even got to some of those individuals. But, the messaging was we have consulted big business and stakeholders and the sort, but we never really even know who these stakeholders are. And then sometimes when we know about the stakeholders, they don't really have their hand on the pulse of what's going on the ground.
Sonny suggests that there's a lot more that needs to be done beyond that 21 days that has been proffered by the president. Bulelani Balabala, a dedicated small business owner and community leader, speaking to us around the potential challenges and the improbability of being able to re-register those businesses within the next 21 days.